Donna Gale. Donna, born and raised in the Fox Valley region, has dedicated the last 35 years to image studios, and she confirmed my guess that she started there when she was age 5. She began her career as a photo stylist and quickly advanced to the role of account executive. Her knack for building long-term relationships with regional and national clients has been key to her success. In 2003, she purchased shares of Image Studios, and by 2007, she became president. Donna was honored with the Small Business Leadership Award for Wisconsin and Michigan in 2010, and received the Athena Award for the Fox Valley region in 2014, recognizing her outstanding leadership and business achievements. Passionate about photography and video production, Donna also contributes her time and talents to numerous nonprofits and charitable organizations in the Fox Valley region, including her agreeing to do the presentation this evening. So please, welcome for Donna Gale.
All right, well, thank you again for that warm welcome, and I'm very excited to be here tonight to tell you about Image Studios. I want to take you back 60 years, but before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about who we are here at Image Studios.
Hi, we're Image Studios. We provide integrated photography, video and CGI services to companies just like you, all over the world. We produce content that inspires, captivates, educates, and gets results. Whatever your objective, we've got you covered. Your image is our focus.
Well, like I said, we didn't always look like that. So now I want to take you back a few years. I'm excited to tell you about this fascinating story that goes back to 1965, when our company founders had a vision that would impact our community and so many lives for the past 6 decades. Kurt Kanoki and Ron Bricko founded Image Studios in 1965. At that time, Kurt was 25 and Ron was 29. Kurt on the left, Ron Bricko on the right. It all started in the Zilke building right downtown Appleton. Tonight I'm going to share their journey from its humble beginnings to its role in our community today, and how our shared values have guided us through the years. So like I mentioned, Kurt started the business in 1965 in a 1,000 square foot studio space right downtown Appleton. You know it as the Zilke building. As a matter of fact, I heard you're going to hear about them next month. Their studio was on the 3rd floor. Kurt and Ron purchased Walter Winsky Photography from the late Walter Winsky. He was a commercial photographer at that time. He tragically passed away in an automobile accident, leaving behind his business and his wife. Ron Bricko was already working for Walter, processing film in his photo lab, and Kurt worked for Walter a few summers during high school. Kurt went to high school right here in Appleton, it's known as Appleton West today, and Kurt always had this passion for photography. This is a photo of him back in high school shooting for the Clarion, the yearbook back then. So as fate would have it, this is how Kurt and Ron became business partners. The attorney for Walter Winsky's estate hired Kurt within less than a year after Walt's passing, and Kurt and Ron then were able to purchase all the assets from Walter Winsky estate. The name Image was actually taken from the George Eastman House journal, photojournal. Kurt learned about the George Eastman House photojournal back in when he went to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology in New York, when he was taking a history of photography class. Neither Kurt nor Ron really wanted to use their last names as their business name, so Kurt suggested Image Studios, and it stuck. So back then, their combined investment was $1,000. So in today's dollars, if you calculate inflation, that would be almost $10,000. They received their first business loan from Gus Zilke. A lot of people know Gus Zilke. He was the president of Valley Bank. They only asked Gus for $6,000. Gus loaned them $9,000. They were a little surprised to see that he loaned them more money than they asked for. Gus knew they needed some working capital, and needless to say, they were a little green about how to run a business. The early business included work for an orthodontist, Dr. Klain. His business was also in the Zilke building. Dr. Klain was their largest customer at that time. Back then, they would create an invoice, walk down the hall to hand him the invoice, and a check was written right on the spot. So who does business that way today, right? What they did for Dr. Klain was photograph all his patients before and after pictures. Sauter Seaborn Architects also had space on College Avenue, and Image Studios had a blueprint machine, and they made all Sauter Seaborn's blueprints. They also started shooting photography for Sauter Seaborn. So the early days were a time where print advertising really dominated, with print media like magazines, catalogs, newspapers. Corporate marketing campaigns relied on great quality photography, and photography was a key tool in maintaining any brand identity or recognition in business. The Creative Group is an advertising agency in Appleton back at that time. Everyone went to the Creative Group if they were looking for an ad agency, and they would soon become Image Studios' biggest account. They had the space in the Conway Building Hotel just a block north of the Zilke Building, and they had clients like AAL, Nina Foundry, Bergstrom Paper, Kimberly-Clark Printing Papers, Braniff Airlines, Gibson Refrigerators. They had a lot of smaller accounts too, and more local accounts. The main service that Image Studios was offering them was lab work. So those were the days that they were literally cutting and pasting in the darkroom. And they did so much work for the Creative Group that they hired a runner to go back and forth several times a day to make deliveries. Kurt and Ron felt that business was coming in the door rather easily. They never felt like they had any competition back in the day. They started to pick up more and more photography with the Creative Group, as the Creative Group had other agency business too. Kurt would tell you that he's photographed inside almost every paper mill in the whole Fox Valley and even outside the area. But it didn't take long. It was only about 3 years in business, and they picked up a new client, Krieger, known as Krieger back then. Today, we know them as KI, Krieger International. This new client was going to require more space. So they found more space on the first floor of the Zilke building, and that provided more opportunities as well. And you can see with some of these furniture setups that it would require more space. But the 1960s was the golden age of advertising, as they called it. They started to do more lifestyle photography. Companies started to use mascots and celebrities to elevate their brand. I think this is work that they did for Mercury Marine, and I think a few of you might remember this guy, the Valley Bank dog. Strong, helpful, friendly. Kurt started traveling more in the late 60s. His first location shoot was photographing Barbara Walters in New York City for Gibson Refrigerators. Gibson Refrigerators sent Barbara Walters a refrigerator, and it was Kurt's job to photograph her hugging it. I wish I had that photo, but I don't. As business started to grow more, they really did outgrow all that space they had in the Zilke building. So they looked to purchase land in downtown Appleton. They went so far as to buy a lot, tore down a house, even tore down some trees. They had plans drawn up to build a studio, but then they realized there was only room for 4 parking spots. And the way business was growing, they realized, hey, this was a bad idea. So in 1969, they purchased land where the studio still stands today. on Lindale Drive in Appleton. They built a 1,600 square foot studio and a 1,600 square foot lab, all in around $50,000. They were really sweating it out at this time. That was a lot of money for them. But they seem to have faith in themselves. 1100 South Lindale is where the studio is located today. This is what was once considered Appleton's newest industrial park. Over the many years, the studio has gone through at least 5 building expansions and so many renovations. But with more space came more opportunities. These are some images from one of their first promo pieces. And as business was growing so fast, they realized, wow, we need a photo assistant. They heard about Glenn Harchis. Here's Glenn setting up a shoot of some leather boots. Glenn Harchis is a Kaukauna native. He was in photography school in Milwaukee at the time. He joined Image Studios a few months before he even graduated. Glenn would then spend the rest of his career until 2010 working with Image Studios. 40 years, the longest tenure of any employee at Image Studios. So by now, they would have 6 employees, and this was the early 70s. Working with Krieger Furniture really was that push that made them decide to build the studio. The new space opened up more doors, literally, and more opportunity. Farm machinery, snow blowers for errands. Kurt really believed that the service that they were providing was evidently appreciated by their clients and customers, not only locally, but worldwide. Because there was clients like Kimberly-Clark, Mercury Marine, Aaron's, Krieger, Miller Electric. They were all starting to do more international marketing back then. Like I said, soon they were doing work with Mercury Marine, and not just shooting in the studio, but also going to Florida to do photo shoots. Cryovac is one of Kurt's longest running accounts, That relationship lasted 30 years. It took him to many countries through Europe and all over the country, as far as Hawaii and Alaska. Cryovac was a company that produced machinery and raw materials used to vacuum package foods and other products. And they had an ad campaign that ran for so many years, featuring executives in these testimonial style ads that ran in Fortune magazine. Kurt shared this image with me of him and his clients taken in Colorado on a photo shoot, and that's Kurt there on the right. So Kurt and Ron had this 20-year working relationship, and if you ask Kurt, he can't get all choked up about it. He'll often tell you that he knew he could always count on Ron when he was out traveling, out on photo shoots, and he'll also tell you that he loved what he did so much that he never worked a day in his life. So Kurt and Ron Bricko, he retired in 1986 to White Lake, Wisconsin, where he enjoyed his retirement hunting and fishing. He also had a love for cars and gardening. His wife, Mary Bricko, worked in the business as a bookkeeper for 25 years, and she retired in 1991. Ron Bricko passed away in 2005, and his wife, Mary, passed away in 2023. Threw a big party for Ron in 1985 when he retired. Kurt Kanoki, he retired in 1996. He's living with his wife, Martha, in Gresham, and overall, he spent 32 years in the business. So about a month ago, I really wanted Kurt to be here tonight, or at least have Kurt share his story with you. So we went up to Gresham and did a little interview with him, and here's what he had to say.
My dad had this little camera that I started to take pictures with, and it was a Bellows. It's a Kodak pocket camera, and Grandma got me a Brownie Hawkeye or something like that, and I started taking pictures. And then the next year, I got a developing outfit from my folks. When we bought the studio, it was Ron and myself, Annabelle Hammer. Ron's wife Mary was our bookkeeper, and she worked part-time, so there was 4 of us in the Zoka building. I did almost all the photography work. Ron did, all of the darkroom work, or almost all. We both did what needed to be done. We didn't do much sales work at all. We didn't need to at the time. But as my portfolio grew then with, real stuff, we grew. I would say in the early 80s, probably, this is 10 years after we got into the new studio, we had around 20 employees. And it really felt like family. And if you look at some of the group pictures that we had from back then, I think you can get a feeling of that. Everybody seemed to be getting along, and it was fun. I mean, I never worked a day in my life. I tell people that I had 3 marriages. Marty, Martha, my wife, Ron, my partner, in the studio. And all 3 marriages worked.
So I want to jump into the 70s. The 70s were a significant era in the commercial advertising photography industry. What happened is with these new trends and color shifts and a less formal approach to photography as compared to the previous decade, we started seeing a lot more color and again, a lot more just fun lifestyle. A few more people came on board too during the 70s, and they brought with them new talent, fresh perspectives, and new ideas. I really do believe that these were the years that our core values really were established. At Image, it's always been our goal to produce great work, and that's what we've been doing for many years, being an award-winning photography studio and video production company. What holds true to this day is that we continually aim to raise the bar with every production. This is work done for Nina Paper. This is work done for Century Insurance. This is one of the earlier promo pieces. In the 1970s, famous fashion photographers like Helmut Newton photographed for Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, and these famous fashion photographers were really the inspiration to so many photographers, and they were providing this more edgy, provocative look in fashion. Film photography was, of course, the predominant medium at this time, and the limitations and unique characteristics of film included that graininess, the color shifts, all of that contributed to the distinctive look of the 70s. This is work that we did back in the day for Downers. And sometimes, if a model didn't show up, you jumped in and modeled yourself. On the left is Ron Bricko. And then in 1980s, Image Studio those were the growing years for Image, and we saw it as an advertising boom with brands that were heavily investing in marketing campaigns. This led to an increased dominance for photography and great photographers that could create that attention-grabbing and visually compelling image to promote their products. There's Dave Wallace, way up high, shooting down on this group of people. Chilton Globe, Lawrence University. So as business grew during this era, so did the need for more employees. Image Studios gained great credibility with its new studio to include more offices and a full-service film processing lab. Having that processing lab really was a feather in our cap at the time. No other studios had that, and it gave us that ability to turn jobs around rather quickly. Jim Weiland, again, sometimes we used this is Jim, sometimes we use our own people in our advertisements. Jim Weiland joined Image Studios in 1976. He actually started as a photographer, but he soon fell into a role as a sales representative. With his creative background, knowledge of photography, and ability to establish strong, trusted relationships, he was able to bring a new business for Image Studios to include Kimberly-Clark, John Deere was a new client, more work with Miller Electric, Carver Yachts, and Kohler was a big one. We were kind of the buzz back in those early days. Even the Post-Crescent did a story about the growing business and featured us in a pretty big article. So here's a picture of Kurt in the 80s. He can still vividly remember the day in the early 80s when he was on a tall ladder working in the studio, and Jim Weiland walked in after a sales call to the H.C. Prange Company in Green Bay. So that day was a game changer. It was Image Studio's first opportunity at retail photography. And what that meant is that Image would shoot all the Sunday supplements for many years with at least 4 to 6 full-time employees dedicated to just that account. Everyone remembers Prangies, right? Prangies, not just Prangies, but Prangieway 2. Prangieway 2, the discount store. Soon after, they were also doing work for Fleet Farm. And this is when Image really started to go through a lot of film. Back then, it was 2 1/4 film, like this large 4x5 film with the bigger cameras. They went from buying several 10-sheet boxes of film to buying 50 500-sheet cases. That's 25,000 sheets of film. So during the mid-'80s, Jim Weiland, he made a trip out to the Art Center in California. He didn't interview just one, but he ended up hiring 2 new young photographers. Now, at this time, we would have 12 photographers, and our standards were really high. With all these photographers, we also had a pretty great support staff that included stylists and preppers, photo assistants. The studio was doing really well. We started a profit-sharing account for everyone. They really were truly exciting times, and we were on a roll. So in 1985, Jim Weiland, Dave Wallace, Tom Running, and Steve Eliason purchased shares of Image Studios. And then Kurt and Ron would eventually redeem their shares in time to retire. Jim Weiland, right here in the middle, he became our new president, and he would remain president until 2007. The 80s were really successful years for Image Studios, and they were growing. The studio expanded into a 15,000 square foot loft style space in the Appleton industrial flats to accommodate all the business needs. Image created a studio location in Green Bay too during the 80s. So now the business had 3 locations. So I joined Image Studios in 1989. I learned about the business through my sister, who is a graphic designer at where else? The Creative Group, downtown Appleton. My first role was working as a hair and makeup stylist. I spent a lot of time in pre-production, doing anything from prepping products to photographing, to photography and location scouting. And there I am in the middle. Long time ago. But it's always been a fun group. So here's some of the work that I did as a hair and makeup stylist. These were shot for Kimberly-Clark ads. This was also a Kimberly-Clark ad for Kleenex. Zwicker Knitting Mills. We did a lot of work for them back in the early 90s until they closed. This was a fun one for Nanick Blinds. And sometimes we just did photography for fun. Photographers would want to practice their lighting, practice a new technique, and I would love to work with them for me to practice styling as well. I did her hair and makeup and purchased her wardrobe to do something kind of fun. So another test shot, we call them test shots. This I did with another photographer. We were trying to recreate Harry Houdini, and that was a lot of fun. Scott Ehlers and Bill Kopinski, Bill on the left, Scott on the right, they were also hired the same year back in 1989. Both men were hired as photo assistants. All 3 of us celebrate 35 years at Image this year. Scott is a photographer, videographer, and my business partner. Bill Kopinski is a photographer, and he's our studio manager in his role today. We call him everyone's dad. He takes care of us. Everyone needs a guy like that. So during these early years for myself, it was clients like Prangies, Fleet Farm, Gander Mountain, JanSport, and so many others that kept the studio buzzing. You could walk into the studio on Lyndale or down in the flats on any day and see 3, 4, 5, 7 photo shoots going on at one time for different clients. Some work for JanSport, Kleenex. And again, we always called ourselves a full-service studio, which meant we were going to hire the talent, we were going to create the room set or a location, and almost art direct as well as photography. This is one of my first shoots too at the studio, working with these babies for Huggies. We had a lot of babies, and what we did is we would take them and hold them and set them down in front of a green canvas and take one picture and we'd do it again. It was a fun time. So we were able to attract more clients during these days from other markets like Milwaukee, Madison, and even Chicago. Here would be a room set that was constructed for Kohler. But we found time for fun too. Kurt won this fishing contest just outside our Fox River studio, or our Flats studio on the Fox River. The Whiter Group was also located in the Appleton Flats. They were an advertising agency, and they challenged us to a fishing contest. So it was all fun and games until the DNR showed up and issued tickets for all the folks that didn't have a fishing license. Like Kurt. He won, but he got a ticket. So Jim Weiland, he was our second president, like I mentioned, at Image Studios, and we had a chance to sit down and talk with him too. And I want to share that with you.
I always wanted to work for honest people. It was pretty easy. They kind of let me do my thing, and we had an advantage because we had a variety of photographers. They were nice people to work with, and we had stylists on staff. Not many photography studios had that. Certainly none around here. We worked with Meredith Publishing, and they produced books for Home Depot, Better Homes and Gardens. And I went to see them. The main editor, their senior editor, looked at about 4 minutes worth of work. And he said, I think he had 6 books to do, and it needed to be done by this deadline. And I have this much money. And I had the confidence to just say, well, I'll meet your deadline. I promise you that. And so when I guaranteed him that we'd get the work out in time, he said, okay, I'll have a contract to sign before you leave. So that's how I did it. And that was ended up being a multi-year project. I made it easy for him. And he trusted us. He trusted me. I took over as president in the late 80s, and we had Kimberly Clark was the main one, Vitromex, the tile company in Mexico, Jansport. We were lucky we found so many good people. But I think there again, because we were successful, people wanted to work with us. We were the only studio in the area that had a E6 machine. So that was an area where when people had wanted to see film right away, we were at a real big advantage to other photo studios who didn't have one, because the art directors could see the Ektachrome. It took about an hour to process. And so an hour after the shot was done, they had the film in their briefcase, and they knew they had it. So that was a big competitive advantage we had. Probably in about 92, we got our first digital cameras. It was a 3.5 meg file, and it was terrible. And we wanted to work with a pre-press house that could do production and color work on it, retouching, all the things you do to these photographs afterwards. And not one wanted to work with us. So we decided to start a pre-press business. And that's when we started Image-It.
So the late 80s were changing times with the introduction to digital photography. And as we researched and invested in digital photography, we also saw the need for pre-press. In 1991, 6 Image Studios employees were introduced to Macintosh and desktop publishing, and a new business called Image-It was established. Image-It was the first standalone digital pre-press company at that time. Tom Running, who was a business partner at that time, he took the lead on all things digital. What you're seeing here is we ran these newsletters every quarter. They were this big, just telling stories about what we were doing in business. I mean, to send something like this out today would be so expensive, but years ago, this is what we did, and we were able to reach our customers and tell them everything about what's happening in business. These are the days before Facebook and Instagram and everything else. So The 1990s definitely were booming times for image studios. It also was a period of economic expansion across the country. There was low unemployment, rising incomes, people were moving to the suburbs. Interest rates were coming down, there was a population growth, and there was a demand for new homes. So with this came new products, right? Building product trends, new home construction. We saw our own area expand. And I'm sharing this with you because image studios had a lot of studio space back then. All that studio space was helpful for us to attract new clients in the manufacturing industry, anyone who produced products for like windows, doors, floors, home appliances, furniture, lawnmowers too. And we had all that space so we could build sets. This was a set that was built in our studio for a flooring company. Lloyd Flanders, another set that was constructed in our studio. Work we did for John Deere. And KI, it required a lot of studio space in order to set up big groups of furniture. I moved into a role as a sales rep in the early 90s, and my first big opportunity was working with Marvin Windows in Minneapolis. That job would require so much space that we didn't even have enough room in our studio. We rented warehouse space just down the street on Lyndale and constructed multiple room sets and photographed them all. So just all to produce a piece like this, it required building. It was 3 large sets and then a lot of details. A job like this back in the day would have cost about $80,000 to produce, just the photography. In the 90s, celebrity endorsements for products became really popular. Over the years, our photographers had this great opportunities to photograph notable figures. Many US presidents, we photographed the Dalai Lama, Mario Andretti, Tony Bennett, Henry Aaron, as you see here. Here's me with Harrison Ford. It's the same night I met John Travolta. It was pretty exciting. Arnold, yeah, like I said, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mikhail Gorbachev, and like Kurt had mentioned, Barbara Walters. You even know these guys, right? Mike Holmgren and Brett Favre had the chance to shoot the cover of Sports Illustrated back in that day. So in the 90s, it was an era of supermodels and celebrity endorsements. The influence of MTV and that music culture definitely had an impact on commercial photography. It started getting pretty colorful. Photo studios were starting to use more advanced studio technique, lighting, sophisticated studio setups, anything to create more drama, more high impact, more striking images, especially in the area of fashion and advertising. So in 1990, Image Studios really was looking for the next big advancement in the industry. We knew it was digital photography, and we knew that it would be a substantial investment in this new technology. But in short time, it really did prove some great rewards in our business. During that period, digital cameras consistently improved in quality every year, and that shift dramatically impacted our workflow, post-production processes, and the overall visual aesthetics, of course, of commercial photography. Bob Cashman came on board in 1993 working as a film processor, but he shifted quickly from film to digital. He transitioned his talents to the world of Photoshop. And with this new department, we offered retouching services that included clipping paths, color corrections, and file processing from raw to high. And this year, Bob celebrates 31 years with Image, and he leads our retouching department alongside Rob Resnick and Rob Froling. Both of those men have many years of experience with Image too. And I just wanted to show you some of the work that they do in Photoshop. This is work we did for Oshkosh Truck. Of course, the Green Bay Packers, Hoffmaster. That whole room was all created in post-production. No one painted that crazy. So that was all a composition of background and surface. This was shot in the studio. All the people and the equipment was shot in the studio, but all the background was photoshopped. Again, something we did for Oshkosh Truck. E-commerce was a fast-growing trend now. The rise of the internet in the 1990s had an impact on the retail industry and certainly a direct impact on our business. A lot of corporate marketing departments invested in their own in-house photo studios as that cost of digital cameras became less expensive. So we realized maybe about a year ago that we've been, with all the location photography that we've done, we've been in almost every U.S. state. I'm telling you this because during this time, our Lindale studio and our loft space in Appleton Flats, even back in the 90s, we started doing more location photography, at least more than half of the time. So soon our Appleton Flats location went from studio space to shared space with Imajet, because Imajet was growing at such a fast pace, and eventually Imajet took over the entire space in the Appleton Flats. So Image Studios would go back to one studio location. So for many years, in the early 90s, we worked with Merillat Cabinetry in Adrian, Michigan. Their agency was Hoffman York out of Milwaukee. Merillat had a team of builders, and they had a great deal of space in Adrian, Michigan to build all their own kitchen sets. But they hired us for many years to go to Adrian to style, prop, and photograph all these sets. Sometimes these projects would last for weeks. And this was during the film era, so it would require an hour trip to Toledo, Ohio every other night to process film. And this was typical for any location shoot, especially when it was a long-running job to find a local film processor. Our largest client during this time actually was the Kohler Company. Most of the work we shot for them was right at their studio just outside of Kohler. This is work for Merillat. Or Merillat. Again, these are studio sets. This would be a set that would be set up in the Kohler studio. And more work for Kohler as a set. Photographers and stylists would report to work in Sheboygan, and for some of our employees, it was a good portion of the year. As business grew, we were adding more and more employees, and with that, we started to market our own business as well with some of bigger marketing pieces and more dynamic promo pieces. I'm going to set some of these books out for you, but these were some of our promo books that we would send out to all of our customers and prospective customers. I want to tell you, in 1997, I'm kind of bringing everyone up to time, but we brought on 3 new employees, Shane Van Boxtel, Michael Lusherson, and Carla Garvey. All 3 celebrate 29 years with Image this year. Shane and Michael work as photographers, and Carla Garvey, her role as account manager and accounts payable. And all 3 of them have had very pivotal roles in our business today. So we introduced digital photography in the late 90s. I remember how hard it was to convince customers that it was better and that film was on its way out. Some skeptics, they just weren't buying it. But by the time 2000 rolled around, we were completely all in and there was no turning back. So I personally had just bought my first iMac in 1998. Couldn't wait to dig in with that new technology. I think we all remember when we first got our first piece of technology. Just thinking back, these are the days of dial-up, right? And chat rooms, and you've got mail. Well, at this time, we had completely removed our film processing lab and replaced it with office space and post-production retouching stations. The investment at that time with all the computers and laptops and servers and software, well, it definitely was an investment for our future. No, we did not shoot the cover of Time magazine, but I put that in there because this was the year 2000. So remember Y2K? Everyone was thinking that nothing was going to work. The new millennium definitely brought its own concerns of that Y2K and a recession, like nothing we had ever seen before in business. The dot-com bubble burst was triggered by the collapse of many dot-com companies. The bursting led to a decline in stock prices, and especially in that tech sector. It affected advertising budgets. And for those internet-based companies, well, we saw a general trend of reduced advertising spending. Clients were simply more budget conscious. We found ourselves having to estimate every project, and people were always looking to get more multiple bids for projects. But overall advertising spending was declining. Companies shifted their focus to more online advertising, recognizing that its potential for targeted and more cost-effective campaigns. So during this economic downturn, we witnessed some agencies even facing closures And some agencies even merged to pool their resources and navigate through these challenging economic times. But in 2001, Image Studios and Image It split into separate corporations. This was our whole team in 2001. Image It alone had grown to 75 employees. And remember, Image It was our digital pre-press company. They were 75 employees alone. And they grew that fast in just 10 years. But it was later sold to OEC Graphics in 2003. The company was primarily handling packaging graphics for the food industry, specializing in asset management. As Jim talked about in his interview, work that we did with Meredith Publishing. So in early 2000, we started doing work for Meredith Publishing. Everything was a book. Everything included a lot of photography, and it kept our people very busy. So the first job led to a whole decade of large photo productions for clients like Home Depot, Stanley Tool, Sandra Lee Cookbooks, Scott's Lawn, Better Homes and Gardens, Miracle Grow, tons of, like I said, Home Depot books, Stanley Tool, everything. So much of what we did was how to, and you page through some of these books, and they're pretty. You might think, well, that's pretty boring photography, but for us, it's very profitable, and it keeps people busy for a long time, and it takes a lot of production work to keep it all really organized. In 2002, we produced the photography for the Appleton's new Performing Arts Center. Remember our own PAC. Late Tony Bennett performed live that night. It was so exciting for our studio to be part of this historical time. Kirk Inoki had already retired, but his involvement was when he put his heart and soul into the making of The Labor of Love, which was produced in part with the Bold Company, and I have it on the table back there. But Kurt spent a couple of years, well, as long as it took to build the PAC, he photographed the making of the PAC, and it was put into a book. He worked on that with his nephew, Kyle. And so that was his passion project in post-retirement. Really, it was an enormous undertaking and a commitment with all the photography and all the storytelling that went into that publication. But again, this was the very first advertisement that went out for the PAC, and I had fun working on that with Dave Wallace. We cast all the talent and had fun finding real dancers that danced and posed for us. We still do work with the PAC. I love anything that I can do to help the community. As Tom had mentioned, we work with so many nonprofits and charitable organizations here in the Appleton, wherever we can give of our time and our talent to help them with just get their message out. We're there for them. And that's where some of my best friends are in business, I have to say. In 2003, Image Studios partnership included Jim Weiland, Dave Wallace, and Tom Running. This is Jim, Tom Running, and Dave Wallace over there, of course, Kurt and Ron. And but during this time, they decided to sell the pre-press business Image It. And with the sale of Image It to OEC Graphics, Tom Running also wanted to sell his shares of Image Studios, and he wanted to sell them to 5 Image Studios employees. I was one of those employees. Another one was my business partner today, Scott Ehlers. Michael Leschison was also one of those 5 employees that purchased shares in 2003. The other two had moved on to Image Studios just a few years after. Tom Running, president of Image It, would retire just a few years after the sale. So Image It changed its name to OEC IT, and it was later rebranded as Amphora Brand Design. And they are a division of OEC Graphics, and they are just down the street from our studio today. I wanted to share with you a little bit about our video work. I also wanted to share a little bit about, if you see these Inside Publication magazines around town. Inside Publications was founded in 2003. I was there with Brian Rasmussen and Margaret LeBrun when they wanted to start this business, and I wanted to be a part of it. I suggested Shane Van Boxtel as the photographer. Shane did the photography for the first issue, and he did every one since. For the past now 21 years, he's photographed everyone that's on the cover of Insight and the Inside Stories, and it's something that we're pretty proud of. Everyone is very fun and interesting and makes you want to read the story inside. So in 2006, Image Studios made more investments, like I showed you with the video, more investments in video equipment and editing software and suites. We soon became an award-winning video production company. We were winning National Telly Awards and Addy Awards from the American Advertising Association. Overall business was really strong for us in 06 and 07 with clients like Kohler, Meredith Publishing, Briggs & Stratton, Kimberly-Clark, Oshkosh Truck, KI, Thrivent, Gulfstream, Yamaha, so many others. Jim Weiland stepped down as president in 2007, and I became president of Image Studios. 2007 was a strong year for us in business, a really strong year, and it was all going quite well, but then came that recession of 2008, another economic downturn that came on fast. Advertisers across various industries, they scaled down, postponed campaigns. Many businesses were facing financial challenges that led to layoffs. We heard new terms like downsizing and right-sizing. But 2008 was a difficult time in business. We did see number of advertising agencies close their doors, businesses struggle. And that downturn really took us about 5 years to recover before things started to look up. And what changed was our ability really to step up our game with video production. What really changed things for us during that time was we landed a new relationship with Mills Fleet Farm. We became their preferred vendor for all TV and radio. That relationship lasted 7 years with us before they were sold to private equity. Doing work with Mills Fleet Farm during that time was producing at least 2 spots a week and handling all their radio spots. So it took about a team of 7 people working with them for all that time. Just wanted to show you one of the spots that we did.
My grandpa had a way with horses. He could tame the toughest stallion and calm the most skittish filly. He taught me everything there is to know about training and care, from proper saddling technique to watching their ear movements, and even finding the right feeding, grooming, and tack. His love of horses became mine, too. Now it's my turn to pass it on to my family. And it looks like we have a good start. Mills Fleet Farm, serving generations since 1955.
So at that same time, we were doing quite a bit of work with the Kohler Company too, producing more video. Jim Weiland retired in 2012, and Dave Wallace officially retired in 2012. So both Jim and Dave would redeem their shares of the business and retire. So 2014, we landed a new big account with CVS Health, offering our photography services for use on product packaging. And today you can walk into a CVS store and see our photography on so many product packages, food product packages and healthcare product packages throughout the store. Here's an example of some of that. They're headquartered in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And I have to say, it's always been very hard for us to find a long-distance client like that, but they have been one very good client to us for a very long time. And that is something that we've always strived for, is long-term relationships in business. Another image for CVS Health. In 2015, Sargento Cheese also became a new client for Image Studios. They're one of our largest customers today. It all started with a new hire there at Sargento that had previously worked at the Kohler Company. That person was aware of our reputation for great work, so they turned to Image for their needs for content creation, for advertising, and social media platforms. And that's pretty much the kind of work that we do for them quite regularly. In 2015, we celebrated 50 years in business. Mills Fleet Farm then was our biggest customer. We were producing all those TV and radio spots. And with the additional video work, we expanded, hired more staff to include more producers and editors. Over the years, we've done so much work with Pierce. They've been a steady client too. And every year we photograph their fire trucks all over the country to produce their Pierce calendar. We also, for the longest time, took care of their customer appreciation program, which included photography of all their fire trucks that came off the line. This required photography in Appleton in Florida. The end product was a framed photo of the customer's fire truck that would be sent to the fire chief. And we would create that and ship it to their customers. About 2015, we started doing more 2D and 3D animation with our video production. Michael Lusherson ended up selling his shares of the business in 2019. He is the one holding the drone there, the drone operator. Michael was our first employee to become certified as a drone pilot. Since then, other image photographers have also pursued their certification for operating drones and producing aerial photography and videography. But yeah, like I mentioned, Michael is still with the business today, even though he's no longer a partner. So today, our partnership is just myself and Scott Ehlers. And just want to show you this. So again, I'm just going to show you a little bit more of our portfolio, some of the different clients we're doing work for. This is all computer-generated imagery done for Schneider Trucking. Everything was created in computer-generated imagery, all rendered except for the people and the sofa. This is a set for Kohler that was all constructed. Set we built in our studio and added a background for Lloyd Flanders. Worked for Miller, Oshkosh Truck. You might have seen these on the highway for Bergstrom, billboards. Kohler Foundry, Dixon Ticonderoga. They're also one of our bigger customers today. Architecture, artisans who make apparel. We produced 2 catalogs for them a year. It's a cover of a Fleet Farm magazine, my husband's good friend. You can find models anywhere. This is an advertisement for Barbicide, the blue liquid you see at the barbershop. Yamaha was a customer for so many years. This is photography on the right, and on the left, that's called CGI, all created imagery done in the computer. So when you say you don't even need cameras anymore today, that's what they mean. It's pretty awesome. Even they couldn't believe it. And that was all completely rendered too, not a photograph. It's all created in a computer. Everyone knows that guy. If you spend any time at the Appleton Airport, our photography is all over the walls, shot for ThedaCare. I love seeing those displays out there. My friend Chris, again, see, we find models anywhere. In 2020, we became certified with the WBE and WBENC as a woman-owned business, since I am a majority shareholder. And I love it when I can do stuff with women at the studio. So this is an event we attended, and for so many years the studio was so many men, but it's fun. Nothing wrong with that. I love all the men too, but it's fun to be able to get the women together. And 2020, of course, how did we deal with COVID? Well, it wasn't fun. This is a shot that we did for the inside spread of Insight magazine. But we adapted by flexing our creative muscle for our most trusted clients, really by live streaming events and programs that allowed our customers to continue with business despite the challenges of COVID. So anything we could do to help our customers get their messages out, whether it was an awards program, a meeting, you name it, we produced it. So really, some of my most memorable moments over the years really come from working alongside my teammates. There's always this great sense of fulfillment working on a photo shoot, knowing that you captured the shot, you exceeded the customer's expectations. But it's never that you just captured a photo. It's so much more to us than that. To anyone that is in the industry, it's just knowing that you preserved this moment of time, that you created an image that somehow inspired someone, motivated someone, or maybe moved someone to tears. So for every video shoot, there's always a chance to learn something new. It's always a new experience. Whether you're meeting a new client or learning about someone's business, there's always such a great opportunity and a great experience for our team. Here's an image that was taken of Kurt on one of his last photo shoots. Kurt would often say that the job's the boss, and for anyone that had an opportunity to work with him, they know what that means. Then here's my team today. We've gone through a lot of changes over the years, and we've adapted to change, whether it was economic or technology related. Today we do operate with 18 employees at one studio. And we work with clients today like Sargento Cheese and CVS Health, Johnsonville, Oshkosh Corp, Miller Electric, Castle Sales, so many more. But we've had the opportunity to work and partner with so many successful corporations, and we believe that our success has always been the product of our customers' success. We're going to continue to invest in our customers, and we're proud of all those long-term client relationships we've had over the years. And I know that we have remained strong by doing what we do best, and that's creating dynamic images for our customers' visual needs. So thank you for listening to my presentation. Here's just another group shot of my team. Just one last thing I want to share with you. It's just one of our most recent promo pieces.
Your business is unique. We think your content should be too. At Image Studios, our team of talented creatives help brands and businesses just like you elevate their marketing strategy with photography and video that tell your story and ignite your audience. We live in a loud world. Together, we can cut